Hello everyone and welcome back to another Mirror Dungeon video. Today, seeing as I'm no longer honor bound to do a solo video, I've decided to take the advice of one of my comments and build one of the worst teams around a specific status effect, in this case, Burn. And by the way, when I'm talking about how bad an identity is for any status effect, I'm purely talking about how good they are at applying said status effect and nothing else about their kit. Unfortunately, Burn is perhaps one of the worst status effects to do this for because pretty much every character that can inflict Burn is at the very least a decent Burn identity, and that's purely because Burn is the easiest status effect to build. In fact, there are only two characters who can inflict Burn who I would consider to be bad Burn identities, and those are Captain Ishmael and Claire. The two ring identities also technically count, but the game doesn't consider them to be Burn identities. However, for our purposes, we will also count them. In my opinion, for something to be considered a full team, you need to at the very least be able to activate the respective fusion ego gifts for your team. And in the case of all of the main status effects, that means you need a minimum of 5 identities. We only have 4, so for all intents and purposes, creating the worst Burn team is technically impossible because you'll always have at least one decent Burn unit unless there's some random character with a single Burn infliction in their kit somewhere that I'm forgetting about. In any case, to make this video actually somewhat interesting, I will be allowing myself to use a couple of real Burn identities in order to activate the Burn fusion ego gifts, but otherwise be unable to attack with them. It's a good thing that now we have the ability to deploy 7 Sinners, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to use both of their ring units and activate the ego gifts since they don't count for Burn. Anyway, to start the run off, we take these starter buffs and find these ego gifts on the first floor of Lake World, before making it to the boss against the pirates. There's not really much to say about this fight. We may not be using the best Burn identities, but they're still fairly powerful identities in their own right, which almost entirely prevents any struggle on these early floors.
이 작살엔 필살의 집념이 담겨있지. 보았나? 적은 이렇게 진리가졌다. 우리의 확고한 승리가 눈앞에 있다. 저놈을 추적해.
완성되었나?
이 작살엔 필살의 집념이 담겨있지.
해냈구나. 나라도 그랬을 거야.
밑그림은 완성했다. 빠르겠지. 밑그림은 완성했다.
아까 했던
불길
공격
속으로.
덕에 한결 수월해진 것 같아요. 자, 악당 배치
좋네요.
성공. 오늘도 정말 멋진 활약이었어.
We take Nixie Divergence and Skeletal Crumbs for our reward before heading into Emotional Subservience for the next floor. Here we buy the Decamillennial Hearthflame while also fusing Pain of Stifled Rage, Pinpoint Logic Circuit, and Soothe the Dead before making it to the boss against the Fey Lantern. You know, since I'm so used to doing solo runs, I've almost completely forgotten that this fight even has a gimmick at all, and it's quite an annoying one for our purposes. Every other turn, the fairy retreats into the ground while more and more of your units become incapacitated until you eventually run out of units that can do damage. Seeing that we have one of the fusion ego gifts, that means I have to field 3 useless identities that end up making it incredibly likely for us to simply not have enough damage to break through the fairy when it retreats. At one point, I even had to force Claire to corrode simply because I wouldn't be able to break through otherwise. Ever since Fey Lantern got fixed from Mirror Dungeon 3, I never thought he could ever be difficult again, but I guess when you're fielding 3 useless units, pretty much anything can potentially be difficult.
무슨 일이야?
부드럽게 그 오물을 떼어내주지.
방금
어떻게 하신
우리가
거죠?
조각났어.
깜짝
계속해도
놀랐어요.
돼. 너희가 아까 망가뜨린 덕분에 악당들이 힘을 잃었어.
이대로 가보자고.
이 작살엔 필살의 집념이 담겨있지. 보았나? 적은 이렇게 진리가졌다. 우리의 확고한 승리가 눈앞에 있다. 전열을 지켜라. 내도 관심이 쏠렸으니 너희가 공격할 기회는 더욱
방금
많아진다.
공간이 뒤흔들리고 그 공격을 아니야. 다시 힘내서 가보자.
일리 있는 의견이다. 그걸로 하자.
직원 상태가 이상해요.
부드럽게.
나쁘지 않아.
방금 건 아무 쓸모도 없었어. 바보.
내 덕에 모두
저희도
좋은
가서
평가를 받게.
도와줄까요, 돌신혜 언니? 아니,
점 찍었네.
타당한 의견이시.
핵심적인 스프레드에 있던 아르카나를 부쉈어. 이제 서서히 힘을 잃어갈 거야. 좋았어.
불길 속으로.
좋아. 선원들, 나를
분명하네.
보호해라.
압도적인 사랑의 힘으로
점 찍었네.
자, 악당 퇴치 성공. 오늘도 정말 멋진 활약이었어. 내일도 꼭 불러주기야.
We take the wobbling keg and ardent flower for our reward before heading into my favorite floor, Hatred of Despair, next. Here we find the Knight's Blessing and fuse Purloined Flame before making it to the boss against the Knight of Despair. The Purloined Flame is easily the best burn ego gift in the game, other than the broken glimpse of flames, because it effectively turns burn into a weaker version of Rupture, which is very helpful against a boss as tanky as the Knight. Even with that though, this was still a fairly difficult fight, mostly because we're down 3 skill slots the entire time. We simply cannot clash against everything, and having enough damage to break each of the swords in time is quite difficult, not to mention actually having enough damage to defeat the Knight before she starts a second cycle. Honestly, the real MVP was Otis, which thank goodness she has a bad burn identity, because without it we wouldn't have access to Magic Bullet, the best burn ego in the game, and what truly hard carried this fight. Fun fact, while the Knight takes half damage from every status effect, she does not take half damage from Dark Flame. It doesn't do too much because it only has a max damage of around 700, which is barely enough to break through her shield, but due to our lack of consistent damage, it certainly did more than anyone else.
괴로워하는 게
저놈을
느껴지지 않아? 이 기세로 계속 나아가 보자.
역시 니놈 말대로 어떤 사람이라도 맞출 수 있는 마법의 탄원이다.
정의의 이름으로! 짜잔! 여기 깜짝 선물을 준비했어요? 정의보다도 푸른 자유, 사랑보다 붉은 자유.
일리 있는 의견이다. 그걸로 하지.
태우고 싶은 곳을 태울 뿐이요.
이 작살은 필살의 집념이. 담결.
너무 세게 맞은 것 아니니?
시원한 스윙! 어디서 스트레스가 저 멀리 날아가는 소리 안 들리나요?
내게 자비를 구하지 마라. 내 앞에는 무엇도 남지 않을 테니.
운명 속에 파묻힌 그대의 이름을 걸고 나 여기서 빛을 맹세한다. 방금 전에는 굉장했다고.
점 찍었네.
당신을 인도해주진 못해도 따뜻하게 안아줄 수는 있어요.
훌륭하오. 이외에 특별히 첨언할 일도 없고.
우리 앞을 막는 증오스러운 존재들에게 나와 그대의 힘을 합쳐 위대한 사랑의 힘을 보여줄 것을! 조금만 더 힘내자. 이제 정말
총원 돌격!
합격장.
방금 공격은
이
좋았어.
작살은
이대로만
필살의
계속해보면 좋을
집념이!
텐데.
담겨있지.
방금의 일격은 매우 좋았습니다. 제가 만약 도시에서 야구 선수가 되어 홈런을 날렸더라면 이런 기분이지 않았을까 싶군요.
낭망한 마음은 검게 타올라 사라지지도 않는 그저 시리도록 범람할 뿐.
깨달음을 얻으셨군.
모자를 쓰고 있는 향기에게 방망이 대신 선칼이 정답이야. 역시
이대로 가보자고.
아카나 레이! 당신 그래도 자! 악당 배치 성공! 오늘도 정말 멋진 활약이었어.
We take spent use forming hate and a duplicate for our reward before heading into Season of the Flames for the next floor. Here we find Bloody Gadget and buy Phlebotomy Pack and Nebulizer before making it to the boss against the Ardor Blossom Moth. This fight would have been absolutely miserable if not for Otis absolutely hard carrying yet again. The moth, being made out of fire, heavily resists both Wrath and Lust damage, two of our primary damage types. If Dark Flame didn't do Pride damage, we would have no damage at all into it, and would be sitting here for like 20 plus turns just waiting for burn to tick down. Really goes to show that even a subpar identity can be saved simply by having access to a strong enough ego.
담겨있지.
알다시피 전 감성적인 말을 하는 것에 능숙한 편은 아닙니다.
제 불을 따라오십시오.
나쁘지 않고. 이 작살은 필살의 집념이 담겨있지.
좋아, 부위 하나를 박살냈어. 세상에, 저거 봤어? 물을 끼얹은 것 같은데?
제 불을 따라오십시오.
저놈을 추적해! 여기까지 쏜 이상 돌아갈 수 없는 것. 가마셀에 담겨 도착할 곳이 지옥뿐이라.
오늘도 정말 멋진 활약이었어.
We take renewed merch and faith for a reward before heading into the evil defining for the final floor. Here we buy the cigarette holder and 4-leaf clover, while also fusing the Dueling Manual Book 3 and Punctured Memory before making it to the boss against Ahab.
때가 왔다, 선원들이여. 자, 너를 깎아내라.
Ahab is simply not a particularly difficult fight. She's incredibly straightforward and, for whatever reason, still bugged. Or at least, I think she's bugged. I don't really know anymore. She's been this way for so long, it honestly might be intentional at this point. But anyway, the bug makes it so that her body does not regenerate all of its health when she does her phase transition. It makes it incredibly easy to stagger her afterwards, and if you have the Eclipse of Scarlet Moth's ego gift, it automatically staggers her before the turn even starts. Even if the bug wasn't a thing, she still wouldn't be any harder. Her third phase would probably be scarier, but if you can easily solo her, when you have 7 health bars to work with, she simply isn't a threat anymore.
합격장.
승객이 딱콩 한 방 먹였어.
선원들, 나를 보호해라.
이상한 귀기가
일리 있는 의견이다. 그걸로 하지.
비뚤어졌구려.
그 오물을 떼어내주지.
적확한 한압이었어.
저놈을 추적해.
허파에 무거운 것이 가득 찰 것만 같은 기분이요.
불길 속으로.
이 작살엔 필살의 집념이 담겨있지.
방금의 일격은 매우 좋았습니다. 제가 만약 도시에서 야구 선수가 되어 홈런을 날렸더라면 이런 기분이지 않았을까 싶군요.
역시 니놈 말대로 어떤 사람이라도 맞출 수 있는 마법의
뭘
탄환.
잘못했는지 아는 것부터가 시작이랬어.
불길 속으로.
저놈을 추적해.
자, 앞당 패치 성공! 오늘도 정말 멋진 활약이었어. 내일도 꼭 불러주기야.
이번엔 성적이 좋았군. 하지만 머나먼 고래에 닿기 위해서는 아직도 부족하다. 다시 가스터빈을 점화한다. 그리고
And that's how I beat Mirror Dungeon 5 hard using the worst burn team in the game, or at least as close as you can get to the worst burn team. It's very difficult to actually make a bad burn team because of how simple burn is as a status effect. Literally every single one of the bad burn identities just needs a single other character capable of inflicting count or potency, and all of their burn problems are immediately solved. And that's the case for literally every burn character. It's just far too simple of a status effect to mess up. Anyway, that's it from me. Like and subscribe for more videos like this one. Goodbye.